Developing out of the Renaissance is a period in art as is known as the Baroque period, and we're inside a cathedral here, a Baroque cathedral. And this is like the late 1600s, early 1700s. And what really causes the Baroque is the refinement of the Renaissance discoveries. And so things become more detailed, more elaborate, more filigreed, as we see in this interior here in the architecture. Things just look fluffier. It looks like this inside of a cathedral was just marble and gold brocade, very similar to the Baroque wardrobe. Here we see on our right where we have the triangle emphasizing the waist and the exaggerated sleeves, the beginning of a collar here, and we see the just elaborate brocade that we see doubled here in this postmodern version of the Baroque dress and our shorts and our skirt. It's the gold ormolu brocade on the black costume that really denotes the Baroque extravagance and feel. Here we have somebody acting the part of a king during that period, and just the brocade itself tells us it's the same period. And we can then look at how the brocade can be used in so many different ways now, but also the neckline here. We see, look at the neckline on the left, that's beige neckline, sets off the head. So they were concerned at the same time not only calling attention to the fabric and the wealth and the artistry of the fabric, but then you lose the head after a while because everybody's looking at the dress. So different ways of setting off the head. You have a neckline maybe in the middle, or you have a plunging neckline on the right. Somehow you've got to get the head back into prominence. And so if we look at that vertiginous feel of the cathedrals back then, and we've got this gold detail in the cathedral at the top of the arches, we can look at how the dresses and outfits at the time, whether it's King Henry VIII or Elizabeth I on the right, used not only jewelry to set off the head from that very detailed and extravagant outfit, but the start of a collar, some kind of collar to set the head off. And we'll see as that develops. A way for the men to set that whole look is the wideness of the shoulders. And here in this Hans Holbein painting, we see the extremely exaggerated wide shoulders with this huge puffed shoulder pads and sleeves to get this feeling. This man is an adventurer. He's an explorer. He's got the telescope. He's conquering the earth. To reinsert the head, like I said, we use collars, but what happened is this real development of lace. Lace was really being manufactured for the first time in a large way, and so lace was everywhere. So we have the ruff, the creative, the extra overly done lace collars are called ruffs, and so we have the ruffs here in a whole family, and we have it shown here as it almost looks like a sundial with the heads just on a platter there. Men had very detailed and elaborate ruffs, and they even had lace on their shoes. It was just a lace revolution. In the 1930s movies, we see if we want to give that Elizabethan period, all we need is that ruff on her neck or the ruff on his, add some jewelry, puff sleeves. We've got it. Here we can see also very good on detail here. Her dress has this petticoat underneath the kind of flared dress, and this is the emergence of a pattern where the dress is really seen almost like a cloak that we put over the petticoat. So it has to be held on the back with some kind of frame. Here we have more of the lace ruff setting off the head, and we can see from the Elizabethan period on the left to the postmodern period on the right, all that ruff does is it evolves into the scarf, which can set off the head in the same way. And here's Cate Blanchett in her exemplary Elizabethan costume with the high forehead, the ruff, the triangulated waist, the brocade. I don't know about that crazy action figure on her neck, but this is everything showing wealth and pomp. And if you want to go into postmodern period, Lady Gaga has to use her ruff with her latex plastic outfit, setting her blonde head off in a big way. If you really want to get into futuristic looks here, you compare the Elizabethan with a ruff now where the head is shown as almost it's a mechanical item ready to spin off some kind of futuristic plate. And this, I love this. This is the ultimate collar ruff where the person's head looks like it's a flower about ready to burst out of a vase. And if you want to be more subtle, you can just do a tiny ruff where it sets off the head and the neckline. And if you want to look at the men's version of postmodern Baroque, it's that copper sheen and to the fabric of the suit. And if you want to take the jewelry from that period and exaggerate the brocade, you can come and do almost like some kind of weird convent cross Baroque, very fetishistic and odd. And if you take the lace part of the Baroque period, you go to Sex and the City, where, of course, we use it to effect, or if it gets splashed by the mud or whatever. But that just pure lace is that modern inheritance from the Baroque, and not the style here, which is most of the people in that period didn't have the money for that elaborate stuff, but they had enough to flare out the sleeves and decorate with jewelry on their dress. But the main object was to have that cloak that could spread around them if it rained, or could be unloosened if they rode a horse. So any kind of scene, if you see any fantasies or any fairy tales where they're riding off, you're going to have something very Baroque in their cloak-like thing that could be easily found to get on a horse. And you can see exaggerated shoulders, and of course this black hat motif making it look very evil. Or we can have a very regal look in the hat and the red being the prominent thing with the brocade. Remember, the hats are being introduced at this period, in the late Baroque period, for women, giving that masculine, powerful look. Here you can see another trend in fashion is to have the anti-fashion, the revolutionary fashion. So if you have the Baroque mini dress on one side, you have the person on the street, artistic splash Baroque on the right. And we can see the same thing here. If you tatter it a little bit, it's there, but it still shows you the rebel look. Baroque emerges into this sackback dresses, this drop dresses, because the extra fabric in the back was trailed behind as a train, and would have servants would have to lift it, and of course could show your wealth. The men in the coats too had their flared out coats, and it was all about what you had trailing you as far as showing your wealth and prominence. And when if you add the farthingale, that truss that you have around the waist, with that sackback, you get the showing off of fabric as if it's like a trail of robes in some kind of church service or ceremony. And then the farthingale developed to get wider and wider. And so it was a way of showing off the wealth of your outfit, but paying attention to the waist, cutting into the waist. And so we had a development in the Louis XV, 14th period, the Sun King period, where we have fabric draped down over the shoulders, wide, tight waist to expand out in that cartwheel of corset there. And here you have Madame Pompadour, which is a 17th century look, but it's all about accentuating the waist, lowering the neckline, and coming up with that period. And here we can see where she looks practically like furniture, and of course not like we would do in the anti-version nowadays here, where you could just accentuate with your t-shirt. Here, that period, we call this the Rococo period. The Rococo period was hugely, extravagantly, overly done in detail, and the dresses are just every flounce, twist, fluff, feather, hat, everything showing off your wealth. It was an extreme explosion of cloth as status. And we can see here in this early 17th century how everything is the development of the petticoats emerging from the capes, the tight corsets to give us the V-line. Of course, more postmodern version is just the corsets alone. And, if you add shorts, flared lacy skirts with the corsets, you get real postmodern regal look. And one of the things they had as a big fashion item were the development of shoes. Here we have Fragonard's picture, a woman on a swing where she's kicking out the shoe to the gentleman below in the bushes. Look at the shoes that these people had. These were definitely wild, and the variety of just like, either seductively using it or showing your status with it. Here we have this peppermint period with the Marie Antoinette look, which is a hair is high, the sleeves are flared, the neckline plunges the flared hips. The men have the same thing with their coats. Their frock coats get flared. Their vests become almost like corsets. And just the hair becomes huge. The hairstyles become huge, colored, just like the dresses they wear. And so if you do period pieces now, they become this almost huge floral arrangement of costumes, just like the Baroque uh, opera houses that became made. Because the growth of opera came out of this period. And what happens with the farthingales emerge into what we call a mantua hip. The mantua hip was really horizontally wide, so women would slide through doors horizontally. It gave them a kind of a glide. They were, by this time, just clothed horses in the sense of being draped with elaborate fabric, but they would just glide in sideways, so it seemed like they were almost weightless. And you see the movies from this period, we have the mantua look on the hips all the time. They got exaggerated to the point of parody. You can only go so far. So these people were just nothing but gliding. This is just purely for evening wear. But to me, it seemed to reflect the architecture of the time. Look at the woman, look at the architecture, very, very, but wonderful to look at now. I don't know about wearing it, but again, looking at aping the architecture, this mantua look was very much like that late 16th century architecture here more. And finally, one last look at this period before we merge into the next evolution.